If you're in the market for a brand new car, especially in the premium segment, then chances are you're looking at a sedan or a bigger crossover or SUV. It's rare for 5 doors like Wagons to be top of mind among Filipino car buyers, and that's the reason they're a dying breed in our market. But today we forget that fact for a minute because we're driving something pretty fun. This is the BMW M340i X-Drive Touring. Let's see if this wagon should be part of your upmarket car shopping shortlist. Now, we can't just talk about the design of this car without talking about the design of the actual location we're in right now. This beautiful carport is part of a property here in Ayala, Alabang village, and it's currently up for sale and listed on the website of our partner, Upside. This stunning 1,500 square meter house sits on a 650 square meter lot. It has 2 carports, both of which have automated gates, and in total, you can fit about 8 to 10 vehicles. Inside, you'll be greeted by a myriad of beautiful materials. There's solid narrow all around from the doors, floors, and staircase all the way to the ceiling. There's plenty of Brazilian marble, including on the table that was created by Excalibur builders. There's also a gigantic backlit wall by the spacious living room that's also made of Brazilian marble. The house is also furnished with iconic, award-winning pieces from architect Zaha Hadid, Ron Arad, Gaetano Pesci, Antonio Citerio, and our very own Kenneth Cobonpue. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but if you want to learn more, check out the listing on the Upside Philippines website. And if you're keen on buying or selling property, simply click on the contact page to get started, and Upside will be ready to make your next real estate move not just easy, but extraordinary. If you've seen the 318i Touring, that's the regular 3 Series wagon, then you'll recognize that this is just a much sportier version of it, at least in terms of design. Now, it's not a full-on M car, but it does get its fair share of performance upgrades. You see this blacked-out kidney grille up front. Those vertical slats inside actually open up when you turn on the car. Underneath, you get a mesh air intake, and on the sides, you get more air intakes for brake cooling purposes. Now, over here on the side, you can see the 19-inch two-tone alloy wheels shod in Goodyear tires, this M badge, which you also get on the other side, and probably my most favorite part about the design, which is pretty weird, but yeah, it looks pretty cool, the side mirrors. The roof rails and this panel right here are also blacked out to give more contrast to the car and give more of that black and white finish. At the rear, you get tail lights that match the headlamps up front, and probably one of my most favorite features, the split tailgate. It also gets power liftgate, but I'm not going to open that up anymore. Underneath, you get a blacked out diffuser, but these, mind you, are not the exhaust tips. That being said, it does get dual exhausts that sound really, really good. Here on the inside, it's your typical premium BMW cabin. Everything's just solidly built, everything's nice to the touch, and it's very easy on the eyes. You've got leather on the steering wheel, you have beautiful red leather seats, and by the way, I do love this colorway. You've got a lot of black materials all around, you have silver and gray accents, these red seats, and interestingly enough, you have carbon fiber on the dash and the center console. Weight savings, I suppose? I don't know. Everything is also very ergonomic for the driver. Everything's just within reach. You have this curved touchscreen display that's easy to reach from behind the wheel. You've got your knob, which you can use to control the infotainment system. You also have a lot of storage here. You have this stowable cubby here with cup holders, a USB-A charging port, and a wireless charging pad. Now, going back to these controls over here, this lever, this knob I like, but these ones, they're kind of hard to determine which ones you're pressing when you're not looking at it. And when you're on the road, that's kind of dangerous. Anyway, let's start this thing up to check out the display. You have twin displays here. You have a large instrument cluster here that all digital, and it's just got all the information you need. It can also integrate the navigation system here, so when you're driving, you just see everything here. It's not a HUD, but it's very easy to use because it's just within your line of sight. This, meanwhile, is your typical BMW head unit, and by that I mean it can be a bit frustrating to use. Your AC controls are found inside here. It's all integrated here, and it only has wireless Apple CarPlay that can be a bit wonky. Sometimes, no, actually not sometimes. It's disconnected a lot of times while I was using it, and it's hard to reconnect your phone. But that being said, it does get a beautiful sound system. The Harman Kardon speaker setup here is just absolutely beautiful. Now, in terms of driving position, well, you do have just enough room to work with here, but that's fine because it feels like this cockpit is just hugging you, and it's very nice when you're driving on the road. There isn't a lot of knee room or elbow room to work with here if you're a taller passenger, but you can move your seats all the way back, and this telescopic steering wheel has a huge range of motion, so that's pretty cool. Now let's check out the back seat. The M340i is technically a 5-seater wagon, but it's more of a 4+1 in reality. See this tunnel in the middle? It's impossible for a full-size adult to sit here. But if you do not need the space for a 5th passenger, it's actually pretty nice to be in the back row. While there isn't a lot of room to work with here, see this much space is left if you have like a 6-footer in the driver's seat, which is actually not that bad if you think about it. But my only gripe here in the back is that there isn't a lot of space for your feet underneath the seats if the front seat is moved all the way or adjusted all the way down. That being said, you do have a lot of amenities here. You have your separate AC controls, 2 USB-C charging ports, you have AC vents, you even have ambient lighting carried over to the back. Of course, this one, you have a center armrest with dedicated cup holders. And here at the back, you also have this net to separate the trunk from the rear cabin. Anyway, let's get to driving. I haven't driven a lot of wagons, but out of the ones that I have tried, this is easily the most fun and enjoyable one yet. The 2-liter twin-power turbo in the 318i is no slouch, but the 3-liter 6-cylinder M-Performance twin-power turbo engine, apart from being an absolute mouthful, is just far, far ahead. And the sound it produces through the stock exhaust is just glorious. But this is with sport mode on, mind you. It gets to highway speeds in a jiffy, and the 8-speed automatic transmission is smooth, and I have zero gripes about it. Underneath this is an all-wheel drive system that holds up well through corners. When you take a sharp turn at speed, the car feels very planted. I do feel a bit of oversteer from time to time, but that's fairly manageable. There are different drive modes available, and I've been driving in sport mode this whole time. That's why the engine and the exhaust were quite loud. When you switch to comfort mode, that makes the exhaust a lot quieter, and it lightens up the steering wheel. It makes the ride a bit more soft and more plush, and it also improves fuel economy by just suppressing the throttle by a little. When you switch to Eco Pro, it suppresses that throttle even more to further improve fuel economy, but that's not why we're driving this thing. So let's switch back to sport mode. With sport mode, you have heavier steering and a stiffer ride through that M-adaptive suspension for better handling. And you've got loads more power, just like this, makes for even more violent acceleration. It does make driving in the city a bit less desirable though, then again, that's not where you'd want to be driving this thing, because in the city, it will eat up it will drink up a lot of fuel. During my testing, I got about 6 to 7 kilometers per liter in mixed conditions with some highway driving, mostly in comfort mode, so yeah. But that's a bit less conservative. If I had been a little lighter on the throttle, I probably would have gotten 7 or 8 kilometers per liter. As you can see, it's pouring hard right now, but I am still driving at the limit on the expressway, and there's no fear of the wheels or the tires slipping, and there's just a lot of grip. Of course, it will be a bit of a hassle when it starts to flood because this is a pretty low car. But anyway, let's just head back to our location where it's drier. Hopefully it's drier and it'll be a lot safer. Now on to the pros and the cons, and let's start with the good things. Number one, the design. I just love this thing. I'm pretty biased because I love wagons, but you can't deny that this just looks really, really good. Number two, the engine. It's so powerful. Number three, the handling. It's just extremely well on corners, and it's so much fun to drive. Number four, the interior. It's just got a beautiful cabin, and it has a nice sound system to boot. On to the cons. Number one has to be the ride. It's a bit on the stiffer side. It's not uncomfortable, but it can be improved and can be better. Number two, probably the ease or lack thereof of entry and exit. It's just hard to get inside or in and out of the cabin wherever you're sitting. And number three has to be the biggest one. It's a big price tag. The M340i X-Drive Touring stickers for 5.89 million pesos. That's a lot of money, and that's 2 million pesos more than the standard 318i Touring. Now the question is it worth all that though? If you're the target market for it, and if you're loaded enough to buy a car like this one, and most important, if you love driving, it most definitely is. This is the most fun I've had in a car in quite a while, and I'm sure it won't be topped off anytime soon. Well, I hope it does. But anyway, out of a 10, I'm gonna have to give it a very solid 9.5.